Thokozani, great opportunity to teach about Easter. I was going to do this tomorrow, but let me do this now that there is a mention of it. So there is truths about Easter that Christians don't know, because I think they would view their whole religion differently if they did. But I am going to share with you guys because I know that many of you are seeking the truth. So basically, in 1825 AD, Constantine, who was the emperor of Rome at the time, decided to hold a council called the Council of Nicaea. Some of you may know this council because it was at this council that the different writings about Jesus were chosen to be put together in a book called the Bible. It was at the Council of Nicaea that Constantine also decided that he was going to bring together the different factions of Christianity that existed since 80 AD. 80 AD were different factions of Christianity who all believed different things. One faction believed that there was only one God and that Jesus was not the same as God. There was another faction that believed that Jesus and God were two and that the Holy Spook was a minor god. So there were many, and then there were many different factions, and all these factions, some were saying that the Holy Spook was bigger than God and Jesus. So just a whole lot of crazy. So this was causing a lot of instability in Rome at the time. Moreover, Constantine was dealing with the Jews who really hated the Christians and who persecuted them, because at that time it was majority of Jews over these Christians, which was a fairly new religion at that time. So Constantine called this council. The Pope, I think it's Pope Pius, was there. There were many different clergy. The rabbis of the Jewish faith were all there. And so the thing that came is Constantine realized that they had to come up with something that pleased all these different factions. And that is when the Trinity, the 3 in 1 and 1 in 3, was created. This is when Constantine said, look, let's just say God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spook are one and the same thing, and that they are all equal in power. Yeah, well, the factions were satisfied with that. There was a problem, which is this whole, so he tried to unite this faction so that they could better withstand the hatred of the Jews. And the Jews said, yeah, so now you have to include, since this so-called Jesus was a Jew, you have to include the Torah, which is the Old Testament, into your texts. That's why we have the Old Testament and the New Testament. And at the same time, the Jews said, yeah, also you people are fighting about when this Jesus died and rose again. You don't know where he died. You don't know where he was buried, and therefore where he rose again. So whatever you do, do not interfere with our festivals. The particular one is concerning Easter that they worried about was the one that they call Pascha, or the Passover. That is the Jews. Okay, so Constantine said, well, look, why don't we do this? Why don't we choose the first Sunday after the spring equinox and make that the celebration of these Christians about their Jesus who died and rose? So he dies on the Friday, then the Saturday he's dead, then he will rise when? On the Sunday. The first Sunday after the spring equinox, which is also the first Sunday after the first full moon in March. That is why you find we've just celebrated the spring equinox we're up here in the northern hemisphere, not even the south, we're in the northern hemisphere. We've celebrated the spring equinox, right? After celebrating the spring equinox, next Sunday is Easter. bakwaNtu, what has that got to do with you in the south? Because down in the south, we've just celebrated the autumn equinox. Do you see how misaligned you are first before anything else? Now let me add the kicker. The spring equinox in the north marks the festival of a deity called Ishtar. Ishtar is who you are all celebrating and giving your energy. Ishtar was the goddess or entity of fertility and sex in Babylonian and Assyrian times. Later, the Germans decided to call it Erster because there's an Anglo-Saxon deity, Anglo-Saxon goddess of fertility and sex. And these festivals were marked by a lot of sex and just indiscriminate, much like the Valentine's Day story I told you. So that is the way of the palm-colored creatures, is they have these festivals where part of their celebration and ritual, actually, their ceremonies include indiscriminate sex. Ishtar's symbols are the egg for new beginnings, which is spring here in the northern hemisphere, and bunnies to represent lots of sex. Now, bakwaNtu in the south, fall equinox, isililo sikaNomkhubulwane. We are in lamentation with uNomkhubulwane because uMvelinqange is leaving the south to come to the north. Ningenapi ku-Easter, for starters, which is a spring equinox festival. Number 2, you are under the guise that you are celebrating this rising of this Jesus. But in actual fact, you're not. You're celebrating this entity called Ishtar or Erster, hence the name Easter. Please wake up, bakwaNtu. So yes, you want to fast around Easter, wait till after, because you don't know what you're giving energy to. And you're not yet spiritually adept to know how to sequester yourself during that time. You should have fasted the time we were fasting, which was in just before and in preparation for isililo sikaNomkhubulwane, which is the autumn equinox. So Christians, I'm sorry to bust your bubble, but nidugisiwe, and you want to continue that's up to you. But I just thought I would share this bit of information about Ishtar. She's also associated with the planet Venus, which is a feminine planet and also a planet of love, divine feminine energy, and so on. In the northern hemisphere, spring equinox, right? But Dugise Ababu, they even misled their own people because this is the time of the new year. The spring equinox should be their new year. But when do they celebrate their new year? An arbitrary festival to the deity called Janus in January. And you, bakwaNtu, partake in that nonsense instead of following your own ancient African calendar. Hayi kumnyama ebusweni benkawu. But anyway, on that note, masithokozeni.